Welcome to Black Fire Podcast, with the voices of the 100 next-gen missions catalysts of African descent lead the charge alongside allies uplifting their generation. Join us as each episode ignites a passion for global gospel transformation, while some shed light on the rich missions history of the African diaspora.
Welcome to the Black Fire Ministries podcast, where 100 next generation mission catalysts of African descent lead the charge alongside allies who are raising their generation. Today, we delve into the life and legacy of Kwame Bediako, a theologian, scholar, and visionary whose work has transformed African Christianity and challenged the global church. So, who was Kwame Bediako? Many know him as a pioneering thinker in African theology, but his journey was deeply personal, a journey of self-discovery, faith, and intellectual rigor that led him to become one of the most influential Christian scholars of his time. Born in Ghana, Kwame Bediako grew up into a world that was undergoing significant cultural and religious shifts. He was married to Mary Bediako, and they had two sons together. She was an integral part of his ministry and legacy, working alongside him, particularly at the Akrofi Christoler Institute in Ghana. He excelled academically, earning a scholarship to study in France. It was there during the summer of 1970 that he had a profound spiritual encounter. He recalls reaching a moment of despair, saying, "God, I'm tired. Take my life." But in that moment, something changed. He describes feeling a newness of life flood into him, a transformation that would set the course for his future work. Bediako's faith journey was also deeply intertwined with his African identity. He once said, "I find that in becoming Christian, I am being more African than I thought that I was, and being more who I am." His father, a policeman, had sought traditional means of protection for his family, believing that prayer alone was not enough. When Bediako returned home after converting to Christianity in France, his father insisted that he visit a shrine for spiritual protection. Kwame's response was simple yet profound. "If Jesus Christ is just as concerned for my security and safety as you are, indeed, even more so, then we don't need that shrine." This realization marked the beginning of his theological journey, exploring how Christ fits into the African worldview and addressing the spiritual questions that Africans were asking. In 1974, Bediako attended the Lausanne Conference of World Evangelization. This event brought together African leaders from around the world, but tensions arose when young evangelicals from non-Western countries challenged the Western-centric agenda. Bediako returned from Lausanne with renewed enthusiasm, determined to contribute to an authentically African Christian theology. His studies took him to Aberdeen, Scotland, where he worked closely with Andrew Walls and Harold Turner, mentors who profoundly shaped his intellectual and spiritual outlook. Walls once remarked that the shift of Christianity from Palestine to the Greco-Roman world was a paradigm for how Christianity moves into new cultures. Bediako saw Africa as the next major locus for his transformation. One of his greatest contributions was the founding of the Akrofi Christaller Institute in Ghana. This institution was named after two figures, Johann Christaller, a German missionary who translated the Bible into Twi, and Clement Akrofi, a Ghanaian theologian who revised that translation. And for our listeners, Twi is one of the languages of local languages of Ghana. Through this institute, Bediako sought to bridge the gap between African traditions and Christian faith, training leaders who will serve the church and society. He firmly believed that theology must be done in the mother tongue, saying, Christian life is lived through the mother tongue and therefore in close contact with the living forces of traditional life. His work challenged the Western theological establishment, while European Christianity had distanced itself from its ancient roots. African Christianity remained deeply connected to its historical and spiritual heritage. Bediako's writings explored this, arguing that theology should engage with the cultural realities of the people it serves. One of his key insights was the understanding of witchcraft not as superstition, but as ill will let loose in the community. He explained that many African Christians live in a universe filled with spiritual entities, and if theology does not address this reality, it becomes incomplete. Kwame Bediako's legacy lives on in the countless students and scholars he mentored. His writings continue to shape discussions on global Christianity, and his vision for an African theological identity remains relevant today. One of his former students recalled how, despite his busy schedule, Bediako always had time for people. He was not just a theologian, he was a pastor, a mentor, a husband, and a father. Even in his final days, his words reflected his faith. The Lord is leading me to rest. So, what can we learn from Kwame Bediako? His life teaches us that faith and culture are not at odds. That Christianity, when fully embraced, can flourish within any cultural context. And that scholarship is not just an intellectual pursuit, but a Christian vocation. Thank you for joining us today on our podcast. If you would like to learn more about Kwame Bediako, check out his books or visit the Akrofi Christaller Institute. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing in faith. Shalom.
To all our listeners and members of the Black Fire podcast community, thank you for embarking on this journey with us. Your support and engagements are invaluable as we continue to grow. Stay connected by visiting www.blackfireministries.org to keep up with our events and ministry updates. If today's episode has inspired you, please consider sharing it and supporting our work by making a donation at www.blackfireministries.org/donate. Every contribution plays a crucial role. Until next time, let's keep the fire burning bright as we ignite change and transform lives.